Here in the Bull City and beyond, women are chasing their dreams, defying expectations, and redefining success. Get ready to witness the laughs, tears, struggles, and triumphs because we're sharing it all. I'm your host, Anjali D, and this is Figuring It Out. I'm currently in San Francisco, California. I'm doing an internship in the private sector, working with a small climate tech startup called Plant Forward. So Plant Forward basically works with consumer brands, mostly food and beverage companies, to help them decarbonize their supply chain. And so basically we take inventory data, the different products that they have, the different ingredients that are in their products, where they come from, and calculate the carbon footprint of those products. And then we share that data with our clients and help them figure out ways that they can mitigate their carbon impacts. We help our client decarbonize their products and lower the emissions of their products by helping them identify ways or areas in their supply chains that they can swap out for more sustainable ingredients or processes, all with the goal of helping food and beverage companies lower their carbon emissions. Both my parents are entrepreneurs. Because of that, I've always had a pretty strong business background or understanding of business. However, my academic training has mostly been research and science. I had just kind of got to a point where I wanted something different, wanted something new. I've always kind of felt like I've thought differently than other folks in academia or in the science community, because I've always been really interested in the intersection between science and business and how we can utilize science to make better choices and help businesses make more sustainable decisions, for lack of a better words, improve our overall world. I met Plant Forward's founder, Julia Collins, at a conference last year when I went to Afrotech for the first time. And she was speaking on a panel the panel was focused on like the intersection between climate and tech. It was through that panel, hearing her talk about the work that she's doing at Plant Forward, that I literally went up to her right after the panel was over, talked to her, asked her if she'd be interested or willing to have me do an internship at Plant Forward. And she was super nice and supportive and gave me her email address. I reached out, and kind of the rest is history. We worked on this grant application so that I could get funding to do the internship. And yeah, that was pretty much how I ended up here. Things, I guess, initially that sparked my interest was that she was a Black woman, and she was a Black woman working at the intersection of tech and climate change. That was really like the type of career that I wanted, but hadn't really seen, and definitely had not seen any other Black people at that intersection. That was what initially kind of sparked my interest. But something that really stuck out to me when she was talking to her panel was one of the audience questions I had asked was really about like, how do they conduct research at Plant Forward? Because she said something during her talk about how they have a team of scientists who help their clients to gather this information and create these different reports about their products and figure out ways that they can minimize their carbon impact. I got really interested because I didn't know that you could have like a research type position in the private sector, especially not in a research position in the sense of like sustainability research. Like, I know that there are research positions like in the pharmaceutical industry and stuff like that, usually more like biology, biochemistry type stuff, but nothing really similar to the work that I have done throughout my career. That's what really sparked my interest in her and the work that she was doing. And she basically told me, she was like, yeah, we have like actual scientists on our science team, our climate solutions and science team. Some of them are data scientists, they have PhDs, and have made the transition from academia to the private sector for similar reasons. And so once I found that out, I was like, that sounds amazing. And I wanted to know like what that looked like. How do you fund science and be a private institution or a for-profit company? So one of the things that really stood out to me about Julia when I met her was how nice she was. She was super nice, super soft-spoken, and she was in a leadership position and running a for-profit company, which that was just, I guess, kind of shook what I thought leadership could look like, especially as a woman and as a Black woman. One of the things that I found, or was really interested in seeing up close and personal, was how she actually leads. Like, what does her leadership style look like? How does she maintain her authenticity of who she is while also running a company? And the fact that she did it in such a very nice and charismatic way where like, it just kind of blew me my mind. Like, I think my idea or my thoughts around what the CEO of a company looked like was somebody who was really busy, straight to the point, not a lot of chit chatter, and not very personable, I guess. And she was all of those things. And so that really surprised me, but also made me super interested, especially at the stage of where I am in my career year where I'm trying my best to be the best leader that I can be, I'm always looking for better examples of what that, or new examples of what that could look like, and to know that it doesn't just have to look one certain type of way, and that as a woman and as a Black woman, I can show up as my full and authentic self and still be considered a leader and do some really amazing work. So after high school, I went off to St. Petersburg, Florida, and attended Eckerd College. I was introduced to marine science when I was a junior in high school. I had to take a elective science class. I was originally trying to become a veterinarian, and so it was time to pick classes for my junior year, and I literally had two options for an elective science class, either anatomy or some class called marine science. And I knew I didn't want to take anatomy, so I signed up for marine science, not really knowing like what it all entailed. I literally remember Googling like the name of the course to figure out what it was about. But once I Googled it, I remember like pictures of dolphins and sea turtles and stuff popping up. And it kind of brought me back to my childhood when I used to say I want to be a dolphin trainer. And so I was like, this would be really cool. It got me out of taking anatomy. So I signed up for that class, went throughout the year, loved it. It was a lot of fun, but still like didn't think anything of it outside of like, oh, this is just interesting information. And so it wasn't until towards the end of the academic year where my teacher at the time, she had got an email about a summer scholar program at the University of Miami. And she sent it out to the class for folks if anybody was interested in applying. And basically the program was this program where they bring high school students to the University of Miami to take a college course for like a 3-week period of time. I ended up applied for the marine science track, and I got in. So I spent like 3 weeks during the summer after my junior year and before senior year at the University of Miami taking some marine science classes. And that really just kind of changed pretty much everything. I got to do field work, we had lectures, we got to meet other grad students and professors, and I really realized that I really loved doing research and I loved being in the ocean. And so from there, I basically had to make a whole new list of colleges that summer, because by the end of the program, I was like, this is what I want to major in. By that time, I still didn't know like really career opportunities, but I knew that there was something there. And so I had to make a whole new list of colleges, submit all those applications in the fall, and I ended up at Eckerd College. Originally I wasn't trying to go to Eckerd. I had never heard of it. I literally found them on Google when I was Googling programs that had marine science programs or marine science majors. And it wasn't until I decided to do a visit there after I had already committed to like going to another school that I really fell in love with Eckerd. It was exactly what I wanted. It was a small liberal arts school. They had one of the best marine science majors in the country, and it was super hands-on. Like the program, like you got to start with your major classes as a freshman, which was really unique and different because at most colleges and universities, you usually don't declare a major until like your sophomore year. And so the option to get started in my major as soon as I got to campus was really exciting, except on top of the fact that literally Eckerd's on a beach. So we have like boats and stuff like that. And they did a lot of labs literally in the field, like in the ocean, which was exactly what I wanted to do. That's how I ended up going to Eckerd. I had originally committed to going to Florida State in Tallahassee, Florida. I'm originally from Durham, North Carolina. I am a proud product of Durham Public Schools. I started off in kindergarten at Burton Magnet, and then I went on to Southwest Elementary School around 2nd or 3rd grade. After that, I went to middle school at Shepherd IB Middle School before finally graduating from Jordan High School in 2015. I wasn't just born and raised in Durham, North Carolina. I am a Durham native through and through, and there is literally nothing that gives me more joy than traveling and people asking me where I'm from, and I get to say Durham. Like, it is my favorite place to be at all times, and I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for Durham. Oftentimes, when I tell people I'm from Durham, they usually already know what it is, where it is, and about certain things that are going on in the area, and I'm always super hyped because, like, yes, like, it's the Bull City. Of course, I don't throw up the horns because people don't usually know what that means, but I'm always really happy to know that other people know about how great Durham is. While people typically know what or where Durham is, and almost everybody knows about Duke University, most people don't realize that Duke is in Durham. And so that's always been super interesting. And then being from Durham, it's always been kind of, I don't know, I guess weird, or like this divide between Durham natives and Duke University. Like, we know Duke, but Duke is really just known as one of the largest employers in North Carolina. So a lot of people that I know growing up, their family members or cousins might have a job at Duke, but it was never really like a connection between Durham natives and Duke University. Like, in a lot of our wildest dreams, we didn't imagine that we would be at Duke studying or anything like that, right? And so when I got the opportunity to attend Duke as a PhD student, I was honestly super shocked originally, because I think just the way I grew up and how we view Duke, like, I remember from high school and middle school, but also like really excited for the opportunity to kind of blend both worlds. The university that I love, I'm a huge Duke fan, with also the community that I love and has made me the person I am today. I originally started considering Duke as a option for a PhD once I studied there in undergrad. When I was at Eckerd, I always applied for like fellowships and scholarships every year. And it wasn't until my like sophomore year that I found out Duke actually had a really good marine science program, which was crazy because I'm from Durham and like I literally never knew that. I was doing some research and I found this scholarship program through Duke that basically provided students who were not Duke students a full scholarship to come study at the Duke Marine Lab for a full semester. And so I applied for it. I ended up getting it, and then I spent the fall semester there during my junior year. And it was during that time that I realized that like, oh, like this, I could come here for a PhD. Like, I actually met my advisor, my current advisor, during that semester. I took a class with him and took a class with other professors at Duke. And I also got a chance to meet other like graduate students at Duke when I was studying at the Marine Lab. That whole experience, being there for the full semester, talking to faculty members, talking to the people in administration, talking to them about their PhD program, that's when it kind of became a reality that like I could actually end up here pursuing a PhD in the future. In undergrad, when I met Brian Stillman, who's my current advisor, some of the things that really stood out to me was, again, similar to Julia, he was super kind, charismatic, and really showed an interest in like talking to me as an undergrad. And he was like literally one of the top marine ecologists in our field. And so that just kind of, you know, took me back a little bit. The fact that not only was he interested in talking to me, but he literally like lit up like talking to me about research ideas, giving me feedback from some of my like applications that I was doing that semester, as well as just like talking about some of the class materials that we would discuss. The other thing that really stood out about him to me was how innovative and outside the box he thought, which really was something I loved because that's also how I think. And I would kind of throw ideas at him, some of them kind of wild, and he would never say, no, you can't do that, or no, that's not a good idea, or no, that's stupid. Like, there was always a discussion on like, how do we make that possible? Or the cool aspects of that project or idea I had, and maybe the other aspects of it that maybe somebody has already done. And so it was just that type of, honestly, the person he is, how he thinks, how kind and nice he was, were really the things that really stood out to me, because I had known I was going to do a PhD eventually. And because of that, talked to dozens of graduate students to try to understand like what things I should look out for in an advisor. And the biggest thing every person had told me by that point was, you want an advisor that's nice. You want somebody who is kind, someone that you enjoy working with. That was literally who Brian was. He was super kind, a lot of fun and energetic to work with. The rest kind of history. I'm not perfect by any means, and I will always make mistakes. It's literally the only proof I can give myself that I'm doing difficult things. So I literally have to make mistakes. So I know most people might call them mistakes, but that's not really how I look at them. Mistakes are really, or losses, however you want to frame it, those are really some of the best learning opportunities that life can give me and anybody else. I kind of look forward to them in a way, because if things are going good too much or you're not making mistakes, it usually, at least in my case, means that I'm not trying hard enough or I'm not doing things that push me outside of my comfort zone. It's because through those mistakes or losses or whatever, through those experiences, that's where I grow the most. When I learn about myself, learn about how I interact with other people, I use that information to become a better me. It's always super interesting to see how systemic racism and sexism play out in my daily life. There is a certain extra level of scrutiny around my decisions, as well as, constant people questioning my credibility and whether I really know what I'm talking about. It's like people see my resume and CV and think it's so impressive that they want me to be a part of different projects or initiatives they're working on, only for me to join that project or initiative or whatever that might be. And then they not really want my voice. Like, they just want me there on paper because, maybe I add some diversity, or maybe, I'm affiliated with organizations or things that makes the work that they're doing look better. Whatever it is, the fact of the matter is they recruit me, they want me to work with them until I'm there. And then when I start to give my experiences, my opinions, my feedback, it's as if people don't want to hear it. They don't actually want me to say anything. They just want me to be a part of something with them. I grew up in a modest middle class family, and my dad would always point out to us that even as it applies to such humble upbringing, that our conditions were only possible because of the sacrifice that those that came before us made. So when I face trials, I always think to myself, the fight for me has already happened. Others have taken up that burden so that I could have the opportunities that I have today. And so when I face trials, I kind of approach them with a sense of gratitude that I'm in a position where I can fight for the people that come after me and make sure that their path is easier than mine, just like the folks that came before me made sure my path was easier than theirs. One of the reasons I decided to run for office in my hometown of Durham, North Carolina, is because I'm always looking for avenues or vehicles, if you will, to utilize my expertise and background as a scientist to develop more community-centered, science-based solutions that help us as humans minimize our impact on the environment that we all rely on. So, like I said, both my parents are entrepreneurs, and so I am very well aware of how difficult it can be in business and in the private sector. But I'm already really impressed with the impact that I can have in the private sector. It's super nimble, and I feel like the focus is really on, productivity and efficiency, as opposed to holding on to, conventional norms. And plus, I feel like my voice is heard, which is always great. I work just as hard in academia, but there are just underlying issues with the power structure, which really just make it super hard to bring all of you to the table. The undue scrutiny is heavy, and it's a lot to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And these are conversations that have been ongoing with women and Black Americans for decades, and there's been very little change. And to be completely honest, I don't know that I want to spend the time that I have on this earth fighting that battle. And I'm hearing the same things from my peers. They're also at some of the top and most respected institutions across the country, and they are the best and brightest of what America has to offer. And they're saying the same thing, that while the private sector has its flaws, that if you can produce, it amplifies your voice. So far, my experiences and many others is that in academia, this just isn't the case. In academia, we hear the same stories of some of the most accomplished scientists, engineers, and others. And when they're presenting in Black or brown skin, or they're a woman, the microscope just really isn't worth the reward, if you will. And I guess the scariest part about that reality is that there will continue to be a lack of diversity diversity in academia, and worse, a huge exodus of Black and brown folks leaving the field. Not many Black and brown women I know are trying to stay in academia or pursuing a career in academia anymore, especially not in my generation when there are so many opportunities for us in the private sector. And the private sector is super interested in recruiting us. And I mean, when you work so freaking hard, it just feels good to be wanted and to be valued for your contribution, as opposed to in academia where you're constantly scrutinized and, you know, everything is dissected with a microscope. And when you make a mistake, you're treated as if nobody's ever made a mistake before, and you're treated with such disdain despite your track record. One of the biggest reasons I got into the media space and eventually started a network that was focused on my hometown in Durham, North Carolina, was because of what I was hearing from people in my generation about their frustration. And they felt that to have their voices heard, they had to jump through all of these hoops only for them to still not be respected or taken seriously, or their opinions be considered valid. And at the same time, you hear from mentors and people older than me how they thought the best path forward was to stay silent, rise the ranks until they were in a position of power where they could actually enact change, only for them to get there and realize change at that scale moves slow. And so it takes a lot of time. And so therefore they wish they would have spoken out sooner. In my free time, when I'm in Durham, I usually just hanging out with my family and friends. Like, that's one of my favorite things to do. And in doing that, one of our favorite things with my friends is we love to go to Boxcar or some type of like arcade place where we can have fun, relax, and play games. We're all used to be athletes in some capacity, so we're really competitive. And when I'm with my family, I love a good meal. And so Kale's Kitchen is one of my favorite places to go to among a ton of others. And we are super blessed in Durham, North Carolina to have some of the most amazing restaurants and food places that you can imagine. And when I'm traveling, I really like to explore. I love a good beach or a nice boat ride or something. But if I'm being honest, I'm something like a workaholic. Even in my free time, I'll still find ways to put myself close to my work. For example, this summer when I was in Panama as a Nat Geo explorer doing research with the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute, I had got access to this new snorkeling equipment, which I was super fascinated about and definitely wanted to try and use it in my free time, which I did, and it was amazing. But even when I was out there, you know, just snorkeling, looking at things, being curious, I would still find myself going near my cages because that's just who I am. I'm super curious, and there's always things that were going on in my cages, like different fish that would pop in and out that I found really fun to mess with. And so, yeah, I mean, to be completely honest, I am very blessed in the sense that I love the work that I do. And so even in my free time, I try to stay close to it. There were quite a few challenges attending Eckerd. While I love Eckerd and am forever grateful for the experiences I had there because it literally set me on a path that I could not have even imagined, there were some challenges. And I think for me, the biggest challenge I had was when I got there, I felt so behind. I was in classes with students, with my peers who had known their entire lives that they wanted to be marine scientists. Some of them even actually went to marine science high schools. And so imagine me having had that one marine science class coming in, you know, and we're taking major classes our first year. It was just really difficult. We would be in class. I remember professors asking questions that we had never discussed, and my classmates would know the answers and I wouldn't. And so that was probably the biggest challenge that I faced. But I also found out really quickly that I just had to work harder. I had to work harder and catch up, but also identify my strengths and play to those. And I realized also that one of my strengths was my work ethic. Not that I'm the smartest person in the room or that I'm going to get straight A's and get hundreds on tests, but that I have a killer work ethic. And so in addition addition to doing my classwork and studying crazy hours, I also put a lot of energy into getting research experiences in different labs across campuses so that I could not only build up my, academic track record, but also my CV and resume. And fortunately, it all worked out and paid off in the end. My time at Eckerd College literally laid the groundwork for the career that I have now. It was super transformative in so many ways, but I think the biggest, or the thing that I really loved the most about Eckerd was our slogan, which we literally embodied. And the slogan was called, "This is Think Outside." And that was present in every aspect of Eckerd. It wasn't uncommon for somebody to double major in philosophy and marine science. Two things that seem so different and not connected, but that's what we did. And that's what our professors and leadership at Eckerd pushed us to do, was to literally think outside and create solutions that may not exist today. And because of that, I've literally carried that, throughout the rest of my career and the decisions I make, which are typically looked at as pretty unconventional. But it's because of that foundation that I had from Eckerd that I literally am able to do the things that I am today. And I recognized that pretty early on, honestly, right when I was graduating, I kind of already knew how much Eckerd helped me grow, how it challenged my perspective and helped me create a new one. And I realized pretty early on how fortunate I was to have all of those things instilled in me at Eckerd. And it's because of that literally maybe a couple weeks after I graduated, I reached out to some of the folks at Eckerd and started an endowed scholarship for Black students who wanted to pursue undergraduate degree in marine science there. And I did that so quickly after graduating because I knew that a lot of my friends and family were asking me, what could they get me as a graduation present? And I wanted to be able to tell them to just donate to this scholarship fund so that I could help ensure that more students that come from similar backgrounds as me have the opportunity to experience the type of education that Eckerd has to offer. Coming out of high school, Eckerd costs $60,000 a year or something like that. And there was literally no way I could, or my parents could afford to send me there if it wasn't for the scholarships that I got. Because of that, I started my endowed scholarship because I wanted to hopefully alleviate the financial barriers that are associated with pursuing a marine science degree from Eckerd. There are endless opportunities in the field of marine science. And unfortunately, a lot of Black youth, especially Black girls, just aren't aware of the field or even the opportunities that you could have as a career path and the fact that you can make money studying the ocean. And as our field continues to expand with the expansion of the blue economy, the opportunities are endless. And I want nothing more than to do the work that I'm doing while also making sure that every Black girl knows that marine science is an option and is a viable option for a career path. And it's not just an option. And marine science isn't just a career option. It's a necessity that more of us are in this field. That our voices, our perspectives are shaping policy, business practices, research questions, because we see what happens, and you see it when you look at pretty much any field, from tech to healthcare. And when we talk about the ocean, we're at this really crucial time where it's expanding rapidly. The research that we're doing, business interests, and all of these things. And so I think it is super important to have more of us in this field helping shape what will be, in the next 10 to 15 years, so that those same exclusionary practices that have affected pretty much any other field, hopefully we have a chance to kind of correct them and go in a different direction when it comes to our oceans and the sustainable development. And it's not just an option, it's a necessity that more Black girls are in marine science and in ocean science fields. We have seen what happens when we're not included, when our voices are not heard. our perspectives are not integrated into policy. And we're at a really crucial juncture in developing a framework for sustainable ocean development. And we need all the voices at the table. We need our perspectives. We need our experiences. We need all of that integrated into what will eventually become policy and law, shaping how we interact and utilize ocean resources. And I have to give a shout out to some dope organizations that are out here trying to make sure that people of color, students of color know about marine science and the opportunities that are available in the field. Of course, Black in Marine Science is a phenomenal organization. They also have a fantastic YouTube channel where you can learn and see real talks from actual marine scientists, Black marine scientists, about their research. Minorities in Shark Science is another fantastic group. They also do have camps for young students and kids, so you should definitely check them out, as well as Black Women in Ecology, Evolution, and Marine Science. It's a fantastic community of Black women in a variety of fields, and it's a great place to connect with other folks in the field, to attend professional development events and conferences and things of that nature. For any child out there interested in pursuing any career path, my biggest piece of advice is to use the internet. Do your research and find people that are in the industry or career path, position that you're interested in, and reach out to them, whether that be on social media, by email, as well as utilizing YouTube, which is a great resource for finding information about your field, whether that look like what type of classes you should take or the different, career paths or positions for people with certain degrees. And then lastly, find organizations that are centered around the work that you're interested in. So for example, if you're interested in marine science, you should definitely connect with Black in Marine Science or Immerse or Weems, those type of organizations that are really geared towards community building with people in the field.